Even though we are about to start the bear market for 2026, I still believe we have a short-term pullback in cryptos in the medium term. And that's exactly what I'm breaking down for you in today's video. Because although we are having some bearish signals, I see a repeating pattern for a short-term pullback to the upside before we actually begin the bear market in 2026. On top of that, we are going to check some key crypto charts, such as Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and ZCash. Crucial price setups, and the most relevant market news you need to stay ahead. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and check out some of my recent uploads. Now, let's jump straight into the core of today's content. From the total crypto market cap, we can see that we are following the overall 4-year cycles. And if we check between the bottoms of the previous cycles and set a line in the middle, we are going to notice a right translating behavior, meaning the top of the cycle happened after the midpoint between both bottoms. And I believe this is exactly what is going to happen again this time. From the previous cycle, we had two tops, a short-term pullback, and we actually start the bear market during that following year. And if you see right here, we are already right translated on the top of this cycle. We already have two tops, and I believe that right now we are about to have that short-term pullback to the upside. Another validation that I have is the RSI already started to drop. This means pretty much that during this cycle, the price is already losing momentum. And that's exactly one of the reasons why I do not believe what many people are saying, that the 4-year cycle is dead and now we are going up and only. Even though that 4-year cycles might actually be gone, this is way too soon to tell. And when we zoom in a little bit into the crypto total market cap, you can see that it is following the weekly cycle bottoms perfectly. We just broke the value trend line of the weekly cycle, just like we had back at the end of 2022. That last pullback was around 32.59%. We don't know for sure how much of a pullback we are going to get, but this means pretty much that crypto in general will still have some pullback on the market before we actually begin to go down. I also see that the DSS right here on the weekly time frame of the crypto market cap already crossed over, just like we had on the previous weekly cycle bottoms. And that's a similar behavior that I see going on Bitcoin. We already expect a right translation behavior in which the price of Bitcoin will start to drop, respecting the 4-year cycle theory. When we zoom in into the weekly time frame of Bitcoin, I see that the DSS already crossed over to a bullish signal, just like we had on the previous weekly cycle bottoms. And it has been over a month that I've been saying that we might get actually a fractal similar that we had in April of 2025. Worst case scenario, it is going to be a little bit more diminished and then the price will get back down. But on both scenarios, I actually expected a pullback. However, since on the bigger cycle, we are about to go to the bear market, it means that the weekly cycle must fail the right translation. What do I mean by that? If you take a look at the previous bottoms, we had a right translation cycle behavior. The top happened after the midpoint between both bottoms. But since on the bigger time frame we are about to start the bear market, it means that we are actually going to get a left translation cycle. It means that the top will actually happen before the midpoint, and then it will continue to drop. And the pullback that is going on right now is already supporting this theory. Now, when we zoom in even further to the daily time frame, we also see that the daily cycle also started to fail. These are also confirmations that we are about to reverse on the macro perspective. We also have to remember that we had the anomaly of October 10th. And when that happened, I published a video saying that such manipulation actually started to happen way before that, at around the beginning of October. Because of that, we see that the daily cycle already failed and became left translated. And that's exactly when we can consider the bear market to start. When we zoom in even further, we can see that our position is holding up quite well. Now, that begs the question, how much can the price go up? And the answer is quite simple. Liquidity. From the liquidity standpoint, we see that it broke out the previous all-time high, although it is still struggling to reach further, but we can consider an injection of liquidity into the market, like I've always said about the M2 growth and borrowing rate. If you have been following this channel long enough, you know that I have been saying that we will continue to drop until we have an actual increase in the M2 growth and borrowing rate, which just happened. So in the medium term for the year of 2026, I still expect some more increase on the M2 growth and borrowing rate, but not too significant. I think it will start to go back down sooner than later, and that's gonna make the M2 index also go up a little, but likewise it will start to drop as well. If we actually want to see a spike into Bitcoin price, we have to see gold turning back down aggressively. We see that gold, based on the RSI, is starting to lose momentum, but risky assets will start to blow off significantly only when safe havens start to drop. And we already started to see some inflow back into Bitcoin, more capital flowing into the crypto market. So I am expecting some more inflows before we start to go back down. Now it seems that the price is starting to hunt back up those liquidity clusters right here on the upside. I mean, look at how much liquidity we have at around 100k. I think this is going to be hit quite soon, even though we still more volume to push it higher and get as further as the previous all-time high. The medium-term context is actually quite bullish. In the same way, the fear and greed index already is in neutral level, and we are about to see greed coming up pretty soon. Now, this is the reason why I believe that the price will not go too much further. And that's exactly why I drew this fractal right here. Because the probability of the price to go to new all-time high is quite low in my opinion. And I'm going to explain you why. If you know, you know. Just because we are having rate cuts, it doesn't mean that it is going to be bullish. Rate cuts probability are driven by the 10-year bond. Those dotted white lines right here was when the Fed decided to cut rates previously. And this is going to be the next one at the end of January. The only situation that I imagine rate cuts to continue to be halted like we see right here on the probability is if the bond market broke up the 4.18%. But since last year it has going only down, showing a strong resistance at this level. And I believe that it is still going to continue this way, maybe even go a little bit further down before rates start to hike or halt like we see right here. So I believe that it is going to reprice to the target of a rate cut at 25 basis points or 50. And the first reason why I believe the Fed is going to cut rates is because the inflation is under control. It is actually going down quite well. So even if you see right here, during the 2025, inflation was going up and still the Fed decided to cut rates during 2025. Imagine now that the inflation is under control and showing signs of weaknesses. This is extremely high probability of a reprice for the next rate cut. Following up on the dual mandate of the Fed, we also have the unemployment rate. The labor market is getting worse. And since the Fed has a job of keep people employed and keep inflation under control, again, this is going to be repriced to a rate cut. So unless we see a significant drop on the unemployment rate, I still believe that it is going to continue to crawl higher. Which brings me to the context in which we are cutting rates. Because again, although the Fed is cutting rates, due to the fact that the labor market is getting worse, we can be pretty confident that we are not under a normalization cut, but actually on a recession cut. Since we are under recession cut, I don't think the price will go too much higher after the cut. Meaning, we might have some short-term upside, just like we had back here at the beginning of 2023, but no, overall we are under a recession, which now begs the question, when are those cuts actually become bullish? And there's only one condition missing: the real interest rate must be below 0. From what we see right now, it is starting to show signs of a reversal to the downside, and I expect the real interest rates to go down. But again, all the way down, we might have further cuts, and all of those cuts are not going to be bullish until we get below 0. So in the short to medium term, cuts are bearish until we get below 0 on the real interest rates. Then after that, only after that, we are going to get bullish when there is a cut. Now, when we check other coins such as Ethereum, it is following a similar behavior as Bitcoin. We had both the daily and the weekly cycle confirmed right here at the end of November, and we see the price already starting to crawl back up. XRP, on the other hand, I still do not see a lot of strength. Also take into account that it is currently on a weekly and daily cycle window, so I do expect some further price down on XRP. So for me to consider XRP at least on short-term bullish, it has to cross the 2.43 level. Solana is following similar to XRP, just finished the weekly cycle window and already getting back up, but likewise it is facing resistance at the 146.51 level. It has to break this level, so I can consider some more bullishness on Solana. ZCash, however, is already quite bearish and confirmed. Our position on the sell side is already holding quite well. Plus, we are on a weekly and daily cycle window, so I expect the price to continue to follow this value trend line on the daily cycle further down. And we are starting to see some bullish news after the invasion of Venezuela. Although this is just a rumor, if Venezuela actually have a Bitcoin reserve and the US takes over it, this is going to be quite bullish. Again, in the short to medium term, but not in the long term. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.